Okay, we got committee members up front. Had a chance to digest some correspondence. Let's see. A couple things. We started final meeting today. First three meetings that we were allocated. I appreciate everybody being here. First meeting had a lot to do with brainstorming, and this group came up with more than 70 initiatives, proposals, submittals, however you'd like to characterize them, and ideas on revenues, productivity, savings for the district. Second meeting, obviously, we went through some discussion, information sharing, and then whittling down some of those ideas and kind of refocusing on recommendations to the board that are more general in nature rather than specific, that would potentially move the needle for restructuring and refining the budget so that it's sustainable over time. And so today, third meeting, we're going to pick that up and see if we can do a little bit more refinement to that exercise. So we'll come back to that in a minute. I do want to say that there is a board report scheduled to the board of the outcome of this committee at the next board meeting. So I'll be pleased to be given that with Dr. Morris, and we'll see just how that sets up and goes. Today's committee, and so I would ask if you're a member of the public and you have comments, please make your comments during public comment. But today we're really going to engage with the committee. We want to get through this to get to a result and stay focused on that. That's fine. With that, before we start and go into public comments, I'll say that we distributed an agenda. In that agenda are 2 letters from individuals that came in through the email that asked for those letters to be put into the record, so we will. Members certainly are welcome to read them at your leisure if you've had time to scan through them and get the general gist of that information.
I have a technical question. Are the questions coming through that email? Shouldn't they all be in the record to even committee members?
Yeah, some of it. Yeah.
Have they been?
No, well, the record will be put together in final. So we have seen all of the questions that I'm aware of, and there are some others for today as well. So you have them in your packet. Correspondence, I believe there's one letter in there with 3.
Previous weeks? Yeah, I don't think they were.
Well, the first week we didn't receive anything. The second week we did.
Okay.
And we're now on the third. And so I would just touch on the questions that are in the packet in addition to the letter before we get into public comment. 3 primary questions in the last page of the agenda packet talks about classified employees potentially opting out of Social Security as a group and saving the district contribution to Social Security. While we're not, I don't think we have the immediate resources to diagnose that. We do know that Social Security rules for opting out are very, very strict. We do know that every interest of Social Security is to protect Social Security, to be honest with you. And we do also understand that CalPERS believes that their members are entitled to both retirements. It would be a negotiable item. So we responded to the email in that nature. You have that response. We have, however, reached out to a couple of the statewide authorities in the finance area, and we'll see what responses we get back from them. If there's a special condition where that can happen, it's something that may be able to be followed up on later on. There was a question about putting a 10% cap on service counts, which is basically the tax code 5,000s. There's a response in here on that. The 5,000s, just to give a general overview, and we'll be talking about more of this in just a moment, broken up into restricted and unrestricted. The restricted side is dedicated to programmatic issues and tied to specific requirements. So any cap on that is going to be, well, not really practical, because those dollars need to be and should be spent on services for kids and staff, contracts and whatever they may. On the unrestricted side, the predominance of what's in the unrestricted side deals with property insurance and other utilities, communications, big chunks like that. But frankly, those rates are set by others, and we use them as overheads for the district. Now, with that said, there are some contracts in there like legal services and other professional services that might be managed. But a 10% cap on the overall 5,000s is, in my view, not practical.
I have a quick question. Is this pretty much set within all school districts what actually enters this category, or are districts making choices of, like, it is shocking to me that carpet cleaning will be under professional services with legal.
There is a state accounting manual that I would point you at.
And I think that is not, so that's why I'm a little bit like kind of shocked and not seeing any numbers attached to the category. It's really hard to, it's carpet cleaning is, but linen cleaning isn't. So it's sort of like this, unfortunately, it's just impossible for us to look at this document attached and really deduce anything out of it, because it doesn't even seem those categories are correctly under those headings.
Well, I appreciate that. There is a state accounting manual that requires where the placement of certain items goes. Those things are sampled by your auditor every year that comes in. And I'm not aware of audit exceptions in those areas, so I assume that you're in compliance with the state accounting manual. I understand your point. Carpet cleaners and professional services, however, that category does capture contracts, generally.
But we also have like an education contract.
Correct. Which is professional
The only
services.
one, but it's not professional services, it's actually after school enrichment.
Service contract. Yeah, because it's contracts and other services, which includes professional services. Good point. Third question deals with what's going on in the business office. Generally speaking, are we compliant, and is our fiscal data reliable? We believe it is. It does change over time. I believe that Mr. Worsham's going to give a presentation to the board about efforts he's making to try and make the system more productive and, frankly, of a higher quality. That work is ongoing, but there is, as I'm told from the district and that I've seen, there's not any substantial issues in the system other than you've had some discontinuity over time with the funding system and how it's being operated with some shortages. And so your auditors have supported that over the years. There have been some revisions to your audit based on some accounting practices, but they have not been of a nature that I would call substantially significant. There's obviously one that was almost $500,000, which is raised eyebrows, but in terms of a budget that is over $30 million, it's significant. It's restated and we'll do another year. But otherwise, the data we believe is reliable. Most of it is, frankly, employees. The real test of that is, are your employees being paid? Everybody that's an employee here, I don't know if you have any complaints of people not getting paid. So that's 81% of everything. So we obviously are not running a lot of these things right down to the very ground and drilling down as far as we can. Unfortunately, time and resources don't allow that. But at a certain point, we prioritize the work we're doing based on what we see, and we're responding to these questions in that manner. Hopefully that's sufficient. The district has got issues going forward, and you'll see a multi-year financial projection come out with first interim. And we'll see exactly what that says about this year and succeeding. As I mentioned previously, Mr. Washington's work he's done and the work Cabinet's done, I believe this year going to maintain your 3% as you file that first interim. It's the out years that really become questions. So that's where our work is. Our work is to start pointing the board to the direction of potential structural changes in the district that they can further investigate or direct or take action. And so 5,000's come up on that, or some other things. They will see the work that you've done on your lists, as well as the things that you identify, those initiatives you identify as a priority, and use that as a compass, is my understanding, to pick up and see what happens next. So that covers not only the letters, but the questions that we received here. With that, any other questions before we go to public comment from the committee? Okay, well, we'll go to public comment, then we'll come back and we'll go through a lot of the paper that I have here, including a number of questions that we received and questions that you requested for more information. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Then I'd like to open it up to public comment. Yes.
My name is Laura Mike. So I did present a letter in your agenda. Thank you for including it. And I just wanted to say if anybody had any questions or anything, I'm here available to speak to it. And I just hope that things going.
Thank you.
Other public comments? And that will close public comments and move on to.
I have a comment, actually.
Yes.
In light of the recent article in the newspaper, and the focus on consolidating schools, I was a little confused by the fact that the 2016 7-11 report wasn't added into the information based upon the fact that it directly related to a school closure in years previous. My understanding is that they found that it was only about a 1% saving across the board to close a school. Considering this is categorized as a saving, the comments that are connected to this particular item actually have much more to do with productivity. So I want to make sure that it's in public, that it's in the record that people aren't thinking that closing the school would necessarily save a considerable amount of money. I agree with the fact that consolidating schools onto one site would probably improve productivity. I just don't know that across the board the savings are necessarily justified.
Then we'll talk about that.
I have a little comment about that too. I think the main takeaway is that because we weren't presented with any concrete information on financial savings, we were tasked at the first meeting and we're going to look at cost cutting, but we weren't presented with any data. And then the general sort of brainstorming was wonderful, but we brainstormed on ideas not relating to any numbers. So then last week's experiment where we put dots on, savings were based again on nebulous financial facts. So now, if that's what we're going to take away and put in a report to the board, I feel it's very misleading because it might actually be, and some of those we know, for example, hiring a communications firm to do promotion will actually cost money. So it's sort of like it really, I think, without any numbers attached to any of those ideas, it's sort of just floating. And I agree with school closures because I was around back when. It is a very problematic concept and it's incredibly divisive. So I think recommending that as a first choice to the board before looking into any real cost cutting that we weren't able to do would be very, very divisive and incredibly harmful. Be very, very divisive and incredibly harmful to the district. So I think some of that needs to be taken into consideration.
Absolutely. I don't believe that the board is going to receive this information. I'm not unaware that you have not had the time or the level of detail to be able to make specific decisions.
Yeah, but I'm not even sure we as a committee are agreeing that that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Based on those.
We'll get to that at the end and see.
So just, I agree with the other two. That was one comment about how this has been run. But there's the thing related, if there's going to be any sort of structural changes, I think probably I'd like to at least put out there that there should be sort of a series of town hall meetings with the public, answering questions, in a way maybe even selling, whatever idea it is. I think, I've watched, the board meetings and things like that. I don't think that's conducive. The board can't answer back. There's no dialogue. It would really be a mess for these sort of things. And I think my fear is that, especially with something that came in the paper recently, everyone's going to notice this and be sort of up in arms about. And it does look like we're kind of recommending consolidating all schools into one site, which seems a bit ridiculous. So,
I appreciate it.
anyway,
I appreciate it.
my public comment is related to the town hall meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, so first point is my comment of this is a viable solution to consolidate to one. So I looked at the numbers and there would still, based on our current assets, there would still have to be 2 elementary schools and 1 upper level school. So consolidating all into one. Second, looking at the 7-11 report, which is 11 years old, they are talking about the very same issues of better utilization of the chaparral property, and there are individuals quoted as saying this topic has come up every 10 to 15 years with no action. So I would be super disappointed if the outcome from this effort was that we look at things, we make plans to investigate certain things. I would look at it as a just continuation of kicking the can down the road, which happened then and probably happened before. Something has to change. We are on the same trajectory. The superintendent is quoted as saying, or not quoted, acknowledging the extraordinarily difficult financial challenges of the district, December 13, 2011. So, extraordinarily difficult financial situation now, 12 years later, or 11 years later, more so, because the county is involved. So, we have to make a concrete recommendation, and that can't be, let's have a series of town halls and get more. We have to make a recommendation to the board. These are the actions that should be.
I would even say, I think the board is looking just for your direction as a group of informed stakeholders to the best of your ability.
You know, I'm listening to a lot of the comments. You know, we talked about the school closures, this and that, and the 1%. But the thing that I'm not hearing is what cost does it take to maintain those schools, those sites. You know, there is a lot more than just staff and students out of school. There is electrical overhead. There's technology overhead. There is admissions overhead. There is so much more, but no one's saying that. So yeah, it may be more than just a 1% savings. When you start to look at the abundant amount of money this district has to put out to take care of a single site, not add 7 of those sites. Okay, so yeah, there, thank you.
Sure.
So you're in agreement. So can we just keep those things in mind, because that's a cost-effective issue too as well, in order to give us the resources we need to be able to have heating and cooling and lighting and, you know, so forth and so on. So I'm not hearing that come up. I just heard 1% is something we have, you know, it's just like, can we just get past this right now? I know that Mr. Greg announced that this is such an important night. We have so much on our plate right now, guys, to try to knock out and hammer down, and it's all in this paperwork. I would like to get to that point so we can see viably what solutions we have to deal with and what type of cost basis we have to come up with in order to resolve the issue. That's what I'm going to say.
I just want to.
So issues can be resolved, so they can. This is why we're here, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we pass, you know, what's the.
The goal is to provide recommendations on potential cost savings and or revenues to the board.
Right.
Now, the board, I believe, is aware and certainly would be reflective of the fact that you've had a month to work on this. And frankly, you're just gaining the first step really in knowledge on the law. So just hasn't been time to thoroughly dig down. So the expectation is not that you provide the perfect answer, a perfect solution. It's based on your knowledge and history of the district. I would care.
Well, and it's
You know, where would you point the board in? What direction to look to stabilize the district, knowing all the things you know about the district?
And the information is
Those-
so misread, it's hard to
Correct.
deduce it.
And if the initiatives that we've laid out, those that we've let it down to reflect that grade, if they don't, then what are we missing? What are we missing?
Making difficult decisions, such as consolidating schools, we mustn't forget that it also provides us with some opportunities. So as we look at making challenging, difficult decisions, along with that, this committee has come up with many program enhancing and opportunities for revenue creation across the district. As we look at tough decisions, let's not forget the opportunities. So it's a negative, a positive. And as we go forward, let's make sure we're looking at both sides of that.
I'm sorry, I thought public comments were only Were they only for the committee, or were
That's-
they for the general public?
Well, public
That's
comments
like-
of the public.
Very good.
All good discussion. With that, I'd like to go to the information that was requested by the committee at our last meeting, and be more on the same topics. Yeah, I apologize, we had some reprographic issues, so the agenda's not bundled as much as we might like, so. We'll go through this information, I'm sure it's for more dialogue. So as you recall, as part of the exercise last time, we asked to put yellow dots on those things that you would like more information on, and then move to the other sheets and record the item and what the question was. So we transcribed from there to this sheet of paper and provided some additional insight. I'll attempt not to read it verbatim to you, but it's for your record, so I will go through it quickly. Stop me if members of the committee have questions. So number 2, minor oaks, the question was the cost to revisit this proposal. I understand there was a proposal to repurpose minor oaks, and the answer to that is there really isn't any cost. This is a matter of priority and direction of the board. Obviously, it could be considered with school consolidation plan if something like that were to occur. The Chaparral property plan, there are a couple of questions. Will the community be okay with leasing this property? Or what will the community be okay with in leasing the property? The lease price was much higher than proposed, and you can see that there is some language there that talks a little bit to the history. It's an extensive endeavor to take a property like Chaparral and put it on the market, consider relocation. I understand that was done, and it was done over a 3-year period, but it was terminated in the spring of 22. Could that come back up again? I'm sure it probably could. Should the board be thinking about that as we go forward? But it is central to the city, which I've come to appreciate. It's a very sensitive area, and so that is going to be taken on, I'm sure. Increase ADA, this is what we're all looking for. This particular question was related to marketing, and that would mean more marketing, so who would do the work? Well, obviously, the district doesn't have a marketing person on staff. Yes, sir.
I think I was pointed out on Facebook that there wasn't a recently a marketing person. I actually looked at their LinkedIn profile and communications. They have a marketing background. I was just curious if they were tasked with stuff.
Not sure who you
I
I
don't
know
know.
the district recently had PO,
We had a part-time PIO.
part-time PIO who had a marketing background at some.
I mean, I was sort of on their LinkedIn, they did marketing.
Public information officer.
I would suggest to you, and we've had some dialogue about this, but just put this in your thinking cap. You know, with competition that you have for private schools up here, it's not just like marketing, hey, come to our school, it's building a whole brand. Like how-
Right, yeah.
So it would probably take some sophistication. Sure. Consolidate schools, well, look at that, we were just talking about that. So there's some general language in here around the questions of what's the consequence, closing, surplusing the school, provide information on past efforts and analysis. We provided the 7-11 report. There was one in 2016. I'm not aware of that. Sounds like there was one. We provided the 2012 report. And what's the fiscal impact, which of course we just finished talking about. Obviously, you know, consequences of closing and surplusing the school, dynamic, right? Depending upon the community, depending upon how it's handled. It's going to be unique to every proposal. You know, provided some some information. 7-Eleven committees, I've chaired one personally, not a lot of fun, but sometimes necessary. Fiscal impact, and this was alluded to earlier. Depending on how the school's organized and funded, we're really talking about overhead, because essentially the kids move, teachers move, classified staff move, but you consolidate, for instance, cafeteria services, consolidate offices, consolidate administration, all of which should have more productivity, I think the term was used, and result in some cost saving. Maintenance and utilities should go down, at least until a point where that property is in disposition, because, well, you still have to keep some lights on and keep the grass growing, otherwise the neighbors are going to get upset, and you may have some adverse occupancy.
If we're gonna get to this, you can tell me, but what typically happens when you close a school? What happens with the property? Does it try to get re-rented, or does it just sit there?
Well, I will say, this is just my impression, I don't have a lot of empirical data on this, but since the Great Recession, the state opened up the laws on what you can do with proceeds from the sale of a property. For the first time, I think ever, back in 2008-9, they said you can sell property, use those funds for operating expenses. Now, those laws have sunsetted to a certain degree, but you see a lot of that going.
We could sell.
Isn't there, or you know this really well, but isn't there a first right to other schools?
Correct.
So charter schools will have actually a first priority to start a school.
That was a big part of the discussion back in
Absolutely.
2016.
You can't sell it or do anything before you open it to.
Well, I wouldn't be so certain about that. Cities have the right to put a bid on it. Public agencies have the right to put a bid on it. Charter schools can petition. That's a long process. And if the board decides to sell, I believe they have the right to sell. Now, I'm not an attorney, and obviously downstream as the board and other fiscal advisory committees or facilities committees, look into this sort of thing, you'll find out more specifics.
There are also restrictions about what you can do with the funds, the proceeds from a sale. There's some exemptions right now due to COVID, but those expire, I believe, next year. So the money doesn't just necessarily go into the general fund for whatever use. It has some restrictions.
And also you would lose.
That's possible. Well, and that's what a study, 7-Eleven committee, or even a consultant before 7-Eleven committee would actually look into. There are certainly unintended consequences, but sometimes those consequences might be good. In fact, the sale of a recent property I'm familiar with, the residential development came in. It was priced to families that could actually afford it, and it generated kids for the school district. There's an option.
Is there any land surplus land that's not associated with the school?
I'm not aware of
Yes,
any.
there's a parcel that is next to Summit that is not occupied currently, but it's next door to Summit. There's a proposal to the board to consider selling that, I think, last year.
Okay, let's see, increase enrollment ABA, data on transfers, the number of students in inter-districts. We included the table provided by the district here on page 2 on inter-districts, 2 other districts, private schools that we're aware of. We believe there's about 350 students that attend Ojai Unified from other districts. It seems like there is a gap, and we provided the district's enrollment by school report. We'd welcome you to take a look at that. Page 19 has a nice breakdown, pushing off of the 2020 census to give you some numbers on number of school-age children in the community, and then there's a table on public school attendance. So we've got to draw some conclusions around, around number of how many other kids are out there.
That 350 kids from outside the district, I assume that's like a revenue generator for the school or public.
For the most part, it depends if they're students with IEPs, they may
Yeah,
have additional services that might cost beyond the revenue received for ADA, but.
Do you know roughly if it is a positive for the school district?
It is overall, I believe our special education rate for inter-district transfers is about 20% of kids coming in, IEPs.
Okay.
We looked back at that data several years ago when I was in the district, and that was about the trend back then. 20% of the kids.
Are you saying 350
OUSD for Division 26.
These are the numbers we've been providing.
26 is just for this last year, so, you have to refill out your inter-district transfer form when you change grade level. So if you have an inter-district in 6th grade, you don't fill it out every year, you would just fill it out again when you go to high school. So those 26 were just the ones that we have for this year, but in general, I think, 350, about 80 go out. It's a little bit hard to track because we're in the middle of reprocessing some of those renewals still for this year, but
But it's a net gain, more come in than go out.
yes, much more. Also, a lot of those are from, for Rock Tree Sky, because they are families who live outside of the district. They weren't necessarily attending another school district. They might have been homeschooled, but they still have to get an inter-district transfer from that district. So like, for example, you saw, we have a couple of private school students that live in our attendance area. If they want to go to Ventura, they have to ask our permission, even if they've never been Ojai Unified students. So it's the same in reverse.
So there's some attendance information for those that really want to drill down. The enrollment report is available for you. Go to number 32, increased busing Ojai trolley. I understand that is in work. There's a student transportation plan that should be coming up for administrative board review in April. So that's again looking towards next year. I'm sure most of us will change overnight. The 4-day work week got a lot of attention. I'm not surprised. Quite candidly, we don't have a lot of information on that. We were provided a website. That website was the school district in Oregon that did some research on, and that district was under some financial distress, and they negotiated furlough days. I didn't really see a full 4-day work week schedule there, although they had a minimum day on Wednesdays, many districts do for staff development and shortened school day. So if there is information on 4-day work week,
Can I comment on that? I actually was the one that supplied this idea. I've been reading a lot up on it, and it's actually rural districts in Texas have begun adopting it. They found, as of right yet, it hasn't happened long. Like one school district I read piloted it for 2 years or possibly 3, and then adopted it. They haven't had enough conclusive evidence to show cost savings on it, but what it has done is it's increased student enrollment from more urban areas. So students are actually moving out, as families are moving out to the country, they're actually gaining more enrollment from it. But as of yet, they don't have enough data that shows that there's a cost saving analysis.
If you can share that with me, I'm happy to put it in the record with the administration, get it on the board, because again, we realize it got a fair amount of attention on our winnowing process, and we do know it's negotiable. We do know that the state of California, I'm not sure what Texas requirements are, 180 days, 180 days, 5 by 4 and a half, which is pretty much going all year round. So,
Can I ask one thing for to go back to the enrollment? It's really kind of 350 is sort of a number that's not relating to anything. Could you, when you supply this to the board, actually show over the years? Like, so has it been 350 6 years ago? Is it declining? Is it increasing?
you just pass that on to the administration. I'm not sure I'll be here to do that, to be quite candid with you. Be able to do that level of detailed work, but we pass on that was of interest to the committee members in the minutes. Moving on to the 5,000s. And I believe this is a breakdown of the unrestricted budget, something more than was adopted. Something more that's in the adopted budget and maybe something that will tie out to the first interim. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but you're welcome to take a scan of it and ask any questions that might help with shortage. So again, not to read through the document, you can read it at your leisure, but you can kind of see where the big numbers are under professional services. The number of things that are move the program along in school district occupational therapy, which is a special education charge, shredding services, translation services, personnel commission, all basic functions for the most part of the district. Software maintenance, we'll get to that in a moment. Carpet cleaning here, yes, plumbing repair, things that are on contract that are part of regular operations fall under this. Fingerprinting, legal costs, audit costs, communications, as I mentioned earlier. Property liability assurance is a big number. Dues and memberships, obviously, that would probably be looked at. But quite honestly, I think you really have to look at this to go catch a problem if I take a big whack of this. It's here for your information. It's here for further discussion. And as first interim comes out, you may want to take a look at those numbers specifically and what's in.
But some of these numbers are pretty large, right? $800,000 is a big, very close to what we're trying to actually say for the first trip, though. So, and I have a question for Laura. Laura, in your opinion, an after school program, although it is contracted out, would it be traditionally in this category? Yeah, it's a contract. Although education is your professional.
How much do you think you could get out of it?
No, it's just.
What's the target? But the point is there enough here really to move the needle on the district restructure? I don't argue that it's good to look at these costs on a regular basis to make sure you're getting the best deal as you can and that you're utilizing it properly.
Yeah. But when we're looking at the districts, for example, we're looking at what is spent for the classroom, right? That's teachers and what's spent for administration and professional services. So for our district, our professional services looks really inflated because there's actually $500,000 in there. We're actually spending on education, but we're representing in professional services. So I think that would be important to kind of distinguish.
Well, I think before you say that it's disproportionate, some compared to it takes a lot of us.
Look, I get that, but it's hard to look at numbers if you don't understand it.
I understand, and it takes time to school. That's the point. So this is a stepping stone for further discussion.
Is there a reason why fingerprinting is 5811 and then fingerprinting is also under 5800?
Well, they probably have, I'm guessing, and maybe Dr. Morse can respond to this, but fingerprinting is done through the Department of Justice and then it's also done in some local places. So you may have to contract something. But again, good question, and I'm sure staff will follow up.
I know why we need it.
You
I
can't
just
get rid of fingerprinting.
didn't know why it was in my thought.
And you gotta pay for those services. Every school district does it, every HR department
I
does
don't
it.
think the same, it's making sure it's in the right spot.
Let's see, next item came up, number 60 was golden handshake. My understanding, the board did some type of incentive a couple of years ago. It wasn't really a golden handshake so much as an incentive for education, retirement. But generally speaking, people asked about, what goes into that, and so we tried to define it fairly succinctly. Golden handshakes really work when the cost of the golden handshakes exceeds the benefits received by those employees that are going out. And those include the cost or incentive that's provided through golden handshake, which is a number. Oftentimes it's 70% of salary over 5 years. The cost of replacing an employee, but sometimes they're not replaced. And of course, plans administration, which is generally a minor cost, but it's a cost all the same. So you do that math, and there are firms that come in and will take a look at your enrollment of your staff and say, okay, maybe there's 2 or 5 or 15 in here. Let's put out a notice and survey. Here's how the math works. So it's fairly straightforward that way. I don't know your enrollment, so I can't really do that work for you, but that's generally how it works. Well, let's say the district money, again, it's a matter of doing the survey and math, ask yourself if it's worth it. Parcel tax, found out, well, the district did a survey on parcel tax. There was some favorable feedback on that. We're going to have that, if we don't already have it up on the website. I did send it to the committee a copy of that done in May.
Do you have any information on comparisons of property tax to different areas within California? I mean, you have places like, I don't know anything about how it works, but like Montecito has insane amounts of money. I don't know if that's coming through, for the school district donations, or if they're somehow getting, local tax, or if it's, because I thought it was all going to like a big pot in the state.
Well, generally speaking, your LCFF funds are your basic revenue source from the state, which is property tax. For the local communities, that funnels up to the state, gets re-swizzled, and then sent back in the formula to school districts. Parcel taxes are outside of that formula.
Okay.
So basically, you're levying a tax on every property in your community. It takes 2/3 of a vote of the district's voters to approve that.
So do you know how we compare generally to other comparable, like are other places having parcel taxes so they have great schools and we're not, or are we, what's the?
In our county, Oak Park and Winter Unified have parcel taxes.
Okay.
Our rate, even with our bonds, because when you look at the total overall tax rate, you have to calculate bonds and parcel taxes. Bonds are used for facilities, parcel taxes can be used for whatever's identified in the tax language. So in our community, we're in the bottom half, even with our most recent bond, we're in the bottom half of tax rates in Ventura County.
Okay. And then outside of, I don't know, like in Northern California, Piedmont, right?
Yeah, the
It's-
Bay
but-
Area has.
But we're
high
getting
tolerance for
close
taxes.
there with, as far as like property prices and stuff. So, do you know, like other, not outside of Ventura County, do you have any?
In terms of local taxes like bond and parcel taxes, I don't know in general. I just know that in the Bay Area, they have parcel taxes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
There's been since the Great Recession, I'd say there's a greater tolerance for parcel taxes. I wouldn't say they're widespread in the school districts. Working with a client down in the South Bay area, they actually have an evergreen parcel tax for the high school district. All 4 elementaries get a chunk of it, as well as the high school district every year. So it's fairly innovative.
And the good news is you used to have a 2/3 majority. So for a bond, you have to have a 55% rate.
35%.
Yeah, but for parcel taxes, you had to have 2/3 majority, which was very difficult to get. So Ojai had tried to pass a parcel tax, it failed. There's just a Supreme Court decision that came out in the last month that you don't have to have that 2/3 majority. You only have to have the same majority. So I think it's a game changer for parcel taxes in the state.
Can we, as far as like on the list of proposals, can we put forward, I don't know if we've actually ever highlighted a parcel tax? I mean, I don't know.
It actually
Maybe I'm the
is,
only one
so
that thinks-
it's number 69 on our list, within a bundle of things that suggested number 69. And let's see how many dots it had. Actually, you should be able to look on your sheet and find that.
I think we'd be hard pressed to get the community to support that when we have very, very small schools as a first line of how do we.
That one green dot, one green dot, 4 yellow dots for more information.
I was just surprised on the survey, it was, I don't know, it was like 60% in favor, so I have no idea if that's accurate or not, and the sample size, but.
Yeah, sample size was several hundred, I think. No, it wasn't, it was actually a little bit smaller, but it's statistically significant.
So if the Supreme Court decision had come 6 months ago, we would have maybe had a different outcome in terms of, because we weren't close to the 2/3 majority,
Right.
but we would have been different, obviously.
Okay.
How much does parcel tax generate annually?
Not that much between, I mean, it depends on, so you get to pick your tax rate, right? So the board would say, we think this amount is tolerable. So part of that survey is how much would you support? But ballpark, $300,000 a year. Give or take.
Each community is different in the manner in which, the affordability versus the majority fiscal views within the community. I mean, that's kind of the fact. Correct. Cities do that, I don't know, the school districts would be able to.
We could, but the city council could propose something like that where the same tax revenue would be dedicated.
Yeah, if cities and school districts, so I think Santa Monica has a version where there's a tax portion of that 1/4% goes to schools. It's identified when the city levies the tax and puts it on the ballot or whatever that looks like, and it's identified, some will go here and some will there.
Would it be possible, if there were to look at that language and put transient tax for hotels, what about boarding schools? Could there be, hey, if a lot of people are going to boarding schools, they're gonna go to where the people are, if you charge $1 per night, transient tax for boarding schools, that's another $1,000. If you're paying for a check, if you're coming from New York, Germany, Saudi Arabia, how many people in our service district? It seems like we're leaving money on the table.
To include the comment in the notes, so I appreciate that. That way we could thank you. Other questions around parcel tax? Dual immersion and other programs of distinction. Of course, every district wants to have programs of distinction, special, and that's a good thing. Obviously, you know, there's a whole bunch of work that has to go into the front end before you hire students, even in pilot, or hire staff, even in pilot programs, before you run off doing the programs. So I'm not aware if there's work in the district on that or not at this time. Question?
I thought that was a great suggestion last time. Not knowing anything about it, it seems like our special education is attracting, no, Dr. Morse?
Yes, it is.
Is it attracting more students? Is that an area that we have the infrastructure already in place that we could promote
So
more?
the issue with special education being a program of distinction is that the federal government only pays 40% of the program cost. You have to fund the rest. The reason that you have encroachment in your budget, a large reason, part of it. So that is not one of the programs. I don't believe that unless you can recoup fees that are comparable to private agencies, which would be a hard thing to do. That's why it's popular here.
For the dual immersion, do we have teachers in the district that would be capable of, I mean, we have like English as a second language, so do we have teachers that could?
Not enough to run a program consistently.
I mean,
Say, I was just talking to Superintendent Wendy and Superintendent Conejo. Conejo started a new dual immersion program this year. They only have teachers for kindergarten.
Yeah.
They don't have a teacher for next year. They're not sure what they're going to do. And they did have 20 more students enrolled in the program than they thought they would have, but they were all from in-district from other schools. So they did not, because they have a similar issue in Conejo where they have a number of private schools and competing schools. And they did not find that opening that program attracted any out-of-district, a significant number of out-of-district students.
I mean, I'm from here, but we moved from Portland and dual immersion, and they're like everywhere in Portland outside. In fact, we were at a private school, the public schools were pulling staff, like we lost 20% of my son's private school to like Salem and places that were starting dual immersion programs. So I don't know if it'd be popular here, it certainly was in Portland.
And I think that the staffing is the primary barrier, but it's certainly worth considering a future option.
I would also add, Ventura Unified has free dual immersion elementaries at middle school and high school.
Say again?
Ventura Unified has.
Yeah, they have one, right?
Three.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if it would be a draw from the district.
There's a lot of attraction in dual immersion, and it's really up to the district to assess is this something that's going to be a plus, neutral, name of the district. It is very popular on the school districts across California.
I just wanted to encourage the record to reflect that the idea of having, say, comprehensive arts education K-5 certainly is worth studying. I think we need to do some work on looking at the impact of the approval by the voters of Proposition 28. So I'd like to offer to put my own time and effort into looking on that. I do think it's worth considering. There are very few districts that offer comprehensive arts education to elementary school students. There's actually not a lot of data about that. no one's actually tracking it, but in the time where I was a backup coordinator in Santa Barbara Unified, even in Santa Barbara Unified with music and art in every elementary school was still not offering comprehensive arts education. We are an arts community. We are a community that stands for the arts, and it's something that would really give us a leg up in the big picture. And I'm not speaking just from a dance perspective. I'm talking about all access to all forms of the arts. So, and we do have alumni in this community who would jump at the opportunity. And not only that, I think we have existing staff members who probably have areas of specialty, having had some experience working with some of them in the CTE realm. I think we have possibilities. I just offer that.
Okay, it's a good comment. Obviously, the program plays a tremendous impact on your students and who you can attract.
Might even get Cal Arts to partner with us.
Or you see
They do with a school district in Wasaga School District. They have a partnership with Cal Arts, with arts in the schools.
Yeah, I think our nearest neighbors would be UC Santa Barbara, and also we probably could do some partnership with Cal State Channel Islands. We have some existing relationships with those programs.
Excellent idea.
Okay, and the last item on the request for information was consolidating all elementary schools into one site. Comments about that earlier. It's not too different than studying closure of any one school, just perhaps a little bit more complex, a little bit maybe a little fewer options for one site because one site we can look at in terms of doing that pros and cons with community opposed to just saving costs. But an optional thing. I mean, all of these things are options. Some are tougher than others. Some seem simpler than others, but have wrinkles. So they're worth talking about. And I appreciate the discussion that's happening here.
The more comments I hear, a little more confused I'm getting. It's hard to give recommendations for mid-year cuts that might have to be made this year, or ongoing.
It's really looking forward about how to position the district. What initiatives should the board consider looking forward? As I mentioned, I think this year, the board's end up with a budget that has necessary reserves to hopefully forestall the county and their aggressive approach to dealing with Ojai Unified. So that buys a little time to make plans.
So we're okay through June 30?
Now, obviously, if you want to implement some structural changes that involve employees, you have to do some things this year to prepare for next year. Okay.
I'm a little confused about this. So the December 15th report to the county that they was
First interim financial.
So what does that have to show in place for the county not to give you a bad certificate?
Well, the county wants a plan for the out years because they don't look at just a single year, they look at all 3 years. The current year plus the 2 subsequent succeeding years. And so what happens over time is you see, if you're not growing, those numbers in the out years become more troublesome. So they feel the need to intervene. And so they saw that with your unaudited actuals, stepped in and said, hey, we need a plan. I know there's dialogue going on right now, and as first interim comes out, I suspect that dialogue will get even a little bit more fevered about what's necessary. If your multi-year shows that you can't make reserves in year 2 and 3, there's an opportunity to file a qualified budget, which says, I don't know what I'm doing. We're working on a plan. Quite honestly, what we're doing here today is the first step to help give the board some support, guidance about what might be. We've got 70+ ideas. Some of them are bigger than others. What we're trying to do is say, well, these we think as a group, these are things whose time has come or haven't come, and we would recommend as a group, at least you look in this direction.
For the 2023-24 school.
Yes, because the things we're going to be looking at the second half of the list probably can't be affected in the current school.
Very helpful.
Thank you. Good dialogue. Thank you. Thank you. We got through the information, and again, encourage everybody to take a look at the documents because again, there's a lot of detail here. I wish, honestly, we had more time in which to go through the information. There was also in the questions a reference to digital platforms, and so I want to share with earlier, but I'll make sure that you've got a paper copy as well, for your binder, because I know you're collecting, it's all collecting, a big binder at home, and all this information. Anticipating that you're going to be, again, together at some point, having to work through. And again, this is one of the, at least in my view, something of a hidden issue in schools these days. We've become so technologically dependent. Schools in the last 10 years, obviously even before that, but certainly COVID have become so technology dependent. Our kids are digital natives, as we know, and we gotta have technology. Gotta have technology. The state has not funded technology. They've given no additional money to buy technology other than maybe some tech grants and that sort of thing. We have a federal E-rate program that helps support technology. But by and large, with the wave of technology and the maintenance that's required for technology, there is no dedicated funding stream. They said basically, well, just take it out of your COLA. Just figure out within your program, you can cut it out of that. And we're still doing that here. Wow. Long time since the first Macs or Chromebooks entered your district, or network for that fact. It's mind-boggling.
These are learning platforms, not other softwares that are used.
There's a variety. There's a variety of platforms in here. I know the county systems are in here. I know there are learning systems in here as well. As you can see on the very right-hand column, although we didn't have the count numbers in here, you can see there are platforms that are funded out of unrestricted, and there are platforms funded out of restricted. Unrestricted, if you were to think about where can I save money for the district, you would be looking at the unrestricted side. And so you can see there, just kind of working up from the bottom of the gray line, Sunday reading, which is familiar in many districts, untangle holding, typing, Skillshare, some study support, spelling, Parent Square, we know what Parent Square is, community, mystery science, LRP publications is generally a reference to other hot topics, so to speak, particularly in human resources. Companion Corporation, Committee for Children. Again, you don't see a wave of money there, and you can certainly question the applications. Yeah.
Question for you, Mr. Rogers. Is there like a process to ensure that there's redundancy? It just seems there's a lot here. I'm surprised that the costs aren't much higher, actually, but there's a lot of different programs. So what things done to ensure that there's no redundancy?
Redundancy. But really, I want to mention there's some slight redundancy in certain things. Like there's 2 math programs here, but they cater to 2 different groups or grade levels, or there's a compelling need for something at like Lexi that can be for all kindergarten through second, but as an ad hoc for 3 and 4. It might only impact 15 or 20 kids. So it's painful, and it's quite literally student by student at times where we give these licenses out, and that's why these numbers are so low. If we don't do what some districts do, which is you buy a site license and you say, hey, everyone has it, and 30 kids use it. Like we are down to the license. So we get in a district transfer, and it's +1 license, right? So Cheryl and I do a ton of work to make this happen.
I have a quick question. So it's missing the $85,000 paper tutor that we added this year. But that's the tutoring software that we.
Special grant that for that, so I don't know if that was not.
So it's not going to continue next year.
It's only being funded out of the AUG grant, which we had money for 2 years.
And this doesn't have, someone mentioned operational stuff like Office, Microsoft Windows.
It does not.
It doesn't have that on there, but it's very minimal. And we pay for what we have.
Would it be a good idea for the board to sort of know that maybe the teachers can have an input in this? Maybe there could be an elementary level. I mean, if we're talking about cost cutting, it might be really interesting to actually bring in the stakeholders and ask them how much are you really using it,
You know, if there is some,
That's a,
I do this at work all the time, and I gotta say that you probably spend more money doing the survey than you would save with these low costs. I mean, honestly, you know, when you start making phone calls and doing surveys, you end up spending this payroll on trying to figure out how to save $5,000.
yeah, it's tricky, and so what we actually have done, we started this process right before COVID, literally 2 weeks after we all shut down for COVID. This first technology committee was gonna have to meet, and then in person became impossible. We didn't have Zoom. The world fell apart. We just didn't do it. So I actually just had a conversation with this week. We're gonna reinvigorate that tech committee where we have teacher input into all of these things. And it's like you said, when you get it too large with the survey, it becomes difficult to pick the right tool, but we need that feedback so we make sure we're not purchasing something that just doesn't work for the classroom. So that's happening, and it's actually, we're going to focus on everything, software, hardware in the classroom, television systems, all just everything technology.
This is preliminary listing, when will the final listing?
Yeah, we pulled this together as preliminary, knowing there were probably a few things not on. So, but I understand the technology committee will be put together soon.
It's not already together, but I have my old list, and I'll be sending it out soon.
I also add too that teachers do have input because teachers are the ones who ask for certain educational software preferences for their students, and especially that too for our SPED students. There is a list that they can result in certain types of softwares and applications, and it gets reviewed. Cheryl Ross, our superintendent, is a big part of this. She handles a lot of this. I want you to also understand that a lot of these services here are servicing your children, are servicing the students of Ojai Unified School District, and we cannot do it any more less than having to pay for those licenses. If we deter from this and your student lacks the interest and lacks the study and the programs that Ojai Unified District put together in order to give them a scholastic way of means. So please, when you're looking over this, take that into deeper consideration. And I will let the ladies here know that in technology, we have looked at amongst all of our groups, including with Cheryl, where we can take away of software that aren't being utilized as much. So that's always been a talk track. It just happened that COVID came, so that screwed us up for 2 years. Well, now we're getting back on track. So it's not like this conversation has not ever taken place. But do know our teachers play a big part and a big role. And as a computer technician, when I'm speaking with my assigned school sites and teachers and asking them how programs are working, if there's anything we can help assist, we are getting great feedback.
You reminded me of something. We also have full analytics on all this stuff.
Yes.
So we can see exactly how many students used Dreambox, how many teachers logged into Dreambox. So it's all in one. I see all the logins, but sometimes it doesn't always correlate exactly to how often it's being used, because you only go once a week to do your grading.
And some of the software programs, you all in this room, parents, preferably, these applications protect your child from going to undue stress sites too as well. We actually, the district is viewing bullyism. We're taking care of all of the stuff that you may not know about or see that's being handled, and then it goes off. The calls are made to let you all know certain different aspects. So a lot of these software applications and programs have just more than just a development of learning. It has a structural of the human psyche.
Marilyn, is in your LCAC report, this technology part of that?
A lot of it, because for example, a lot of these things, even the unrestricted or the supplemental funds that buy ESGI, for example, because the primary teachers wanted ESGI, it's a primary assessment tool. So a lot of these things fall under like Read Reflex, Lexia, all fall under goal 2.1 intervention, which is our second goal in the LCAP, and the first action is intervention. So, and in companion to what Boris said, most of these student programs
are asked for by the teachers. I mean, because they've heard about them or they've used a pilot or something. So I would say, in my opinion, this is real bare bones.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
don't think should be tinkered with.
Yes, ma'am.
Good discussion on the technology platform. I would ask a question, David. How big is your staff?
I have 4 staff, a network specialist, a software specialist, and 2 computer techs. And we have 3,500 nodes, smart thermostats, vape sensors.
Not uncommon across school districts to find that a big network is managed by a dedicated but very small staff. So that's always one of the challenges in schools, not just small school districts, is to send folks out and, oh, let's look at this and spend time on that. But in fact, you have a hard time connecting to the internet, or you can't get teachers computer working. It's a challenge everywhere. Thank you. Okay, so we've gone through some information. Now I really kind of want to get to the end game if I can. We can spend the rest of our time talking about how and if and what we do here. So I've taken the opportunity to draft the boilerplate recommendation form I'd like to walk through with. I'm open to any discussion on how you might want to revise it. But hopefully at the end of this session, we'll have a few items to send forward to the board, based on the work that you've done, based on some more discussion around that. So I ask you to read through this if you would. I'm going to take a few minutes, stretch your legs if you would. I'm going to take a few minutes to hang our charts up from the last session back up there so we can see where we were with green dots. And I will ask you again when we come back to reassess once now that you've had a little bit more information, there's been more dialogue on anything that you might change and where you put your green dots. This is very much a working draft, so take a read on it.